We don't have any fire alarms expected today, so if the fire alarm does go off, please use one of the exits that are clearly marked around the room. So we'll jump straight into item 1, minutes of the last meeting. Are members all happy with the minutes? Yeah, is that unanimous? Yeah. That's item 10. And then item 2, apologies. Julie, do we have any apologies?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. We have apologies from the Chairman, Councillor Marion Chapman-Allen, Councillor Richard Duffield, and the portfolio holder, Councillor Crane.
Thank you for those, Julie. And then we'll go to item 3, urgent business. Is there any?
Excuse me. Could I give the apologies for Annie Blackburn, please? Thank you.
Thank you. And Julie, I'll note them. Item 3, urgent business. Is there any? No? We'll move on then to item 4, declarations of interest. Do members have any declarations to declare? Okay then, item 5, non-members wishing to address the meeting. No? Okay, we're whizzing through today. Item 6, private hire and Hackney carriage licence fees consultation. And I believe I'm handing over to Craig.
Yeah, good morning. Good morning, everyone. This is to review our taxi licensing fees, to review the responses to the consultation on taxi licensing fees and make a recommendation to full council. The council needs to regularly review its fees and charges to ensure they are based on full cost recovery, so they're not undercharging or overcharging. And obviously this report centres around taxi, which is private hire, and Hackney carriage fees and charges. Public and trade consultation took place between the 20th of December 24 and the 20th of January 25, and the trader also emailed on the 20th of December 24. Basically, it's been advertised in accordance with the regulations. We are required for Hackney carriage and private hire licences under section 70 of the Local Government Miscellaneous Provisions Act. A newspaper notice was published on the 20th of December, and a notice was also displayed at the council offices again on the 20th of December to the 20th of January, and a copy of that notice is attached to Appendix A. As I previously said, the trader emailed 238 drivers were emailed to seek their views on the consultation. A copy of that email is at Appendix B. At Appendix C, you'll see some responses to the consultation. The licensing committee are asked to consider the responses received and make recommendations to the council. This will be considered by council at the budget setting meeting scheduled for the 20th of February. I think just to be clear, the licensing committee are not setting the feed. They don't have a delegated authority for that. So what you are doing is considering those representations, and you are then making a recommendation to full council. They'll be the ones that actually make the decision. So the committee may, after consideration, recommend that the advertised fees are implemented, or recommend an alternative to the advertised fees. Now that formal notification and consultation has taken place, the council must decide on the fees in accordance with the relevant sections of the Act. It cannot choose to do nothing, so it needs to sort of decide either way, whether you go with the advertised fees or you come to a different recommendation. I understand, and Sarah Wolstenholme, my legal services manager, will just confirm, but on the notice of advertisement, it refers to the 1st of April. I understand, as there's been representations on the fees, we now must give consideration to that, and they will take effect on another date. So whatever you recommend, as there's been representations, the fees will now come into force on the 2nd of April, not the 1st. It's a bit of a quirk of legislation, but is that correct, Sarah?
Yes, I can confirm that. The new fee needs to come into play within 2 months, or not later than 2 months after the first specified date, the first specified date being the 1st of April. So we are choosing the 2nd of April because obviously it then ties in with budget setting as well.
Okay, I think that concludes the report. Did you want to just refer to the recommendation, Sarah?
I think members can debate the matter first and discuss the matter and raise questions, and then we'll deal with the recommendation at the end.
Councillor Cadell.
I think we all know how I feel about the increase in the taxi fares again. I have spoken to a few drivers and I can concur that the letters that you've got here are a tip of the iceberg to the feeling that we've got on the street. I don't understand why we don't increase the fares at the same time like it is with other boroughs to offset for the drivers. Everything today has gone through the roof and taxi driving is now becoming not a good job. To have these increases with the fuel and everything is just astronomical. And I know London has a set thing where if fuel gets to a certain point, drivers can then put on a surcharge to their fares. We're past that here and we've never had that suggested. I think we need to help these drivers, not keep penalising them. That's just my opinion. But
Thanks. Generally, I feel the same way about the need to increase fares as well, to make it possible to keep our own taxis, which are under our own control, operating in our own area. The idea that we've got Uber taxis coming in, or other areas' taxis coming in to do the jobs our taxis should be doing, is a little worrying. I also had a query about the procedure of all this. Page 12 and page 13 of the report. On page 12 it says, please note that the consultation is only on the fees highlighted in yellow on the attached sheet. And on the next sheet, several are highlighted in yellow. That goes down about halfway down the list. Then there are some that are quite minor, but at the bottom there are a couple which are taking it over the £200 mark. And I wondered why those two, at least, if not all the others, were not included in the consultation. I'm looking at trailer grant and trailer renewal.
Okay, as far as I understand from the legislation, we don't need to consult on those items that are not highlighted in yellow. That, yeah, Joe's just confirming that's correct. I suppose they are in effect add-ons or additional things. So the things that, as in procedure, the thing that the Act requires us to consult are in yellow, but obviously we have gone over and above what the law requires, and we give people the opportunity to, to see what we're proposing to increase and give them an opportunity to comment. So hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, it may be a consultation, but as the figure that's going to be raised in this is quite a minor sum, can it be absorbed somewhere else without hitting the drivers and their livelihoods? It's not a big sum that's going to be raised. I agree with the councillor here that the drivers, the people that operate these businesses have been hit hard enough, and it is such a small sum overall, there must be a way of absorbing it.
I'm not aware of any other budget that would absorb it. The fees, and I think the principle behind it is that it is based on full cost recovery. They are commercial businesses that are trading, and if they're requiring a licence, I think the general principle is that they pay that fee. And if you did it from somewhere else, then technically somebody would be subsidising, another budget would be subsidising those sort of trading activities. So I'm not aware of any budget where that, and we've obviously, we've got rising costs. We appreciate there's rising costs to the trade, but the council is also not immune to those costs. Unfortunately, we're just, the fee for processing it and doing that licence is based on that fee.
Thank you. I am in complete agreement with what Councillor Cadell mentioned earlier. I find it a little bit odd that we're not also looking at reviewing the fares, and it'd be good to just understand the rationale behind that. I'd also like to know what the drivers are getting for their money. And when I've looked at the licensing costs, if I just take that new driver's licence, the 3-year licence, the costs across the county, hopefully I've noted these down correctly, are somewhat lower than ours. So Norwich has £490, I think, which is sort of understandable given that it's the city centre and the market is big. But then if I'm reading their particular charts correctly, I think Kings Lynn is running at it's running at £118. And North Norfolk is at 205, and our proposed new one is 314. So I just think, I'm not convinced the Breckland market is so booming to sort of withstand that increase. But I'm also curious if Kings Lynn can run their licensing renewals for so much less, nearly £200 less than our proposed uplift. I'm just wondering why that might be, and I think it might be worth just scrutinising that a little bit, because it would appear to my eye that we've got about £200 worth of efficiencies possibly to look at there.
Okay, thank you. So I think the first one was table of fares. We did review our table of fares 2 years ago. I believe that's 2022. And what we sort of said at the time is that we would review, as in the fees, we would review the fees, not the table of fares, but we would carry out a review of the fees on an annual basis. So table of fares was increased on the flag rate in 2022. I think our benchmarking at the moment, so we haven't increased our table of fares. Our table of fares is a maximum fare, so the trade can charge less. But I think on a 2-mile journey on that 2-mile flag rate, we are the most expensive. So for paying passengers, our table of fares is higher than anyone else in Breckland. Sorry, in Norfolk, I beg your pardon. Breckland is higher than anyone else in Norfolk. And I think we have to bear in mind, I think the rationale is that we are at the top end already. So if we did it, that would bridge the gap. We are quite a rural area. People will have to take longer journeys. And that would mean, if they're taking longer journeys, we have to balance the people who can't drive, people on lower incomes, etc. So there is a cost there. Ultimately, if the committee says that you want us as officers to look at it, we can look at the table of fares. But I think at the moment we did increase it 2 years ago. We are on the top end, and the rationale was we're already more expensive than anyone else. And again, that could. Again, I think there's bits in the trade that people are coming from different areas. If we do increase those table of fares and we do make our taxis expensive, that might also harm the trade, because I could go to, I could book from somewhere else and I could get a cheaper taxi as well. So I think that's table of fares. Sorry, I don't want to. I can come on to the other one. Do you want to? Anybody want to? Sorry, my phone went off. Table of fares.
Could I ask on the table of fares, if the table of fares are the highest, have we consulted the operators as to why this is the case? Gone back to say to the operators, why are your fares so much higher than Kings Lynn, for example? It can't just be our fees, there must be other issues. Instead of just accepting we are the highest, why don't we know why they're the highest?
I think on the table of fares, there was a request from the trade 2 years ago to increase, so we did. So that so not being that is why we're probably the highest. I suppose the question of the trade is that we even get higher. we put our table of fares up even more. So
My question is why? Sorry. I apologise. My question is, if we got a breakdown of the costs from the operators, we could find out why our fares, the fares in Breckland, are significantly higher than other areas. It's not just profiteering, one would hope.
I think I may be able to help with that response. So the table of fares 2 years ago is calculated on a number of factors, including things like cost of fuel, how much it costs to maintain a vehicle, how much a vehicle costs, etc., etc. And then it's all calculated and formulated, and we come out with an end figure. We then go out to consultation with it. So we went out to consultation with those fares. They came back. Many of the drivers actually came back and said they're a little high. And as we explained to them, that's the maximum price they can charge. They can charge lower, but they can't charge higher on a Hackney carriage because it's a metered fare. So we reviewed ours in 2022. The fares for comparative local authorities, Kings Lynn and West Norfolk haven't updated theirs. They're about to update theirs if they haven't done so just in January, February this year from 2018. So they're only just reviewing their fares and their taxi licensing fees. So the numbers that are on at the moment will actually go down. One thing I would like to add to just reassure you is that we get these same concerns from the trade. But what we see in the team is that the numbers of drivers and vehicles have actually increased in the last 12 months. Not by many, but we're looking at about 20 drivers and probably about the same in vehicles, which is unusual. We've always stood between 200 and 215 drivers per year, and roughly a little bit more on the vehicles, but we're actually seeing an increase in it. So it suggests that actually the fares are fair and that there is the trade out there, because people wouldn't still be coming into the business if they weren't able to make a living at it. So whilst we understand the concerns, if you like, the evidence that we've got doesn't necessarily stack up against that the trade is diminishing. Does that make sense?
Right then, if there's no more questions, oh, Tina?
I'd just like to make a proposal, to be honest. Can I do that now at this stage? I'd like to propose that we don't accept these increase in the fares and look somewhere else for the money.
Councillor Blackburn. Then we move to a vote on this proposal first. We do. Can I please have a show of hands then in favour of Councillor Cadell's proposal? And against? Or I can vote.
Because you're chair, you have a second vote if there is a tie.
Well
in
then,
accordance with the Constitution.
I do understand Councillor Cadell's concerns. However, our officers have liaised and consulted with trade bodies, therefore I vote against this proposal.
We then move back to the substantive recommendation and proposal. Which I slightly amended, so, yeah, sorry. So may I read it out, and then obviously somebody will need to propose and seconded it. I've just added a few additional words at the end just to clarify what the recommendation is. So the proposal and the recommendation will be, it is recommended that the licensing committee consider the responses received on the proposed increase in taxi licensing fees and charges and make a recommendation to council that the proposed fees are implemented.
Point of order, I believe. I didn't get an answer to my question with respect to the differentials in fees between us and other areas.
Craig, would you like to clarify that?
yeah, sorry, yeah, I'm conscious of that. I think we moved on on, didn't we? So, yeah. So, yeah, I've got some comparisons here. So I think it was about the new dual licence. I think we are fairly comparable. So I think if we look at the fee, I mean, the other authorities may be increasing their fees, but I think we're looking at current fees. So Breckland is 314, Broadland is 325, South Norfolk is 326, Great Yarmouth is 220. I think North Norfolk is 205, and Kings Lynn, as you said, is 125. So, I mean, obviously, I can't say why Kings Lynn, they are quite considerably lower than Breckland, and they are quite considerably lower than the rest of the county. It could be that they're not basing their on cost recovery, and you know, I don't know why Kings Lynn are so low. I think all I can say is that we have looked at our cost. We've carried out sort of comprehensive, you know, each charge is individually calculated. We look at officer time, we look at, you know, buildings, insurance, IT, you know, sort of costs, legal advice, all of those on costs, and we calculate the fee. So I suppose all I can say, and I think the legal advice we've had, is that each local authority will be different. They'll have, you know, different officers, they'll have different building costs, they'll have, you know, different insurance costs, and therefore the calculation should be on Breckland's costs. So I think that's probably about as best as I can answer it. But if you get what I'm saying, yeah, the fact it's 125, it may actually cost them. That's pure speculation. It could cost them a lot more, but they're probably not basing it on full cost recovery. But I think looking at the fees, we are pretty, sorry, there's no pun intended, middle of the road. But, you know, I think 314, we are pretty much in the middle. Some are higher, some are lower.
Sarah, would you like to read out the proposal again for members? And can I just take this moment to remind members, we are not responsible for agreeing or setting the taxi fees. This will go to full council. This is voting on the recommendation going to full council.
So the recommendation is, it is recommended that the licensing committee consider the responses received on the proposed increase in taxi licensing fees and charges, and make a recommendation to council that the proposed fees are implemented.
Councillor T. Taylor, was you proposing that recommendation? And Councillor S. Fraser will second it. And I will carry that and stick with my original vote in favour. Thank you, Craig, for the report. And we'll move on to item 7, licensing fees and charges. And again, I'll hand over to Craig.
Okay, so this is a report just for information only. It is brought to members' attention just to set out our discretionary licensing fees and charges. We don't need to consult on those, and we don't need to make a recommendation. It is non-exec function, and that will be decided by the full council on the 20th of February, but it is provided for information. So basically, yeah, the recommendation is that members note the contents for information. It will be considered by full council. You will see in the proposed fees there are discretionary fees. So you will see in I think Sarah's called it the pretty sheet, is statutory and discretionary. So if they're statutory, that means that it's either set by legislation, a specific fee is set, or there is a statutory maximum that we can't charge more than that, so we can charge lower. So if they're statutory, they're statutory, they're set by legislation, and you'll see D's there, which means that's discretionary. So we do have discretion, or some discretion, to set our fees. So basically, the proposed fees are contained in Appendix A to this report. They're being shared with committee for information purposes ahead of full council. And basically, again, we are basing our costs on full cost recovery. As an officer and as a budget manager, obviously, I am tasked with ensuring, again, as a budget manager, that we have a balanced budget. So again, if we don't have a balanced budget, then that is difficult. And again, we've reviewed those fees and charges on full cost recovery. And again, that ensures the council are not overcharging or they're not undercharging. So again, it's just the benefits there that the licensing service meets its costs. It has a balanced budget and is adequately resourced to meet its statutory duties and functions. This will ensure good customer service, public protections and benefits to our communities and local economy. As this report is purely for information, the report author, which is me, considers there are no constitutional constitution or legal implications with this report. So you will see there a list of the proposed fees and charges, which are there for information. So
Thank you, Craig. Do members have any questions? Councillor Cadell.
One jumps out at me here, Craig, and I'd like to know why and how. Two questions actually. How much was pavement licences before, and why or how can we justify £500 per year for a pavement licence? That is totally prohibitive to the cafes in our areas. And the renewal, I'm guessing that's per year too. I don't understand. Is the pavement a new licence? Literally, when you go out and inspect it, and that's £500, and then the next year it's 320. Is that right? Yeah. If that is the case, you're looking at £800 for the first year, pretty much. That's a lot of money to have to take.
How many chairs is that?
How many? Yeah, that is. Can you tell me how much it was before? Because I seem to remember it was 180, something like that. It was a lot less. So what justifies that increase?
Yes, previously, during COVID, the government obviously wanted to encourage people to go outside. So they did pass some relaxation and some changes to legislation, and they did set the fee, I think it was £100, maximum of £100. That wasn't based on full cost recovery, but that was imposed, and it was obviously, I think it was designed to help the economy, and we had lots of things in place, didn't we, during the pandemic. So that was set by legislation. Hopefully committee members will remember, I think it might have been 2 committees ago, we talked about pavement licensing, and we did agree those fees, and we set out the basis behind that, the costs, etc. I'm just going to refer to my colleague a second. Yeah, it is a 1-year licence. So yes, I think what it was cheap before because it was in legislation, but government I think have recognised that doesn't meet the costs of consultation, going out, inspection, potentially enforcement, and there are some new powers in there as well, wasn't there, about where people do breach it, that we have powers to remove street furniture, etc., as well, where people are, and I think there was also some concern locally as well in certain towns that businesses were putting tables and chairs and they were obstructing the highways, and people in disabled scooters and wheelchair users, etc., were physically having to go out on the road. So it was to give us a bit more control. So I think hopefully that just sets out the difference in the fee. I think it was an emergency measure which didn't meet our costs, and I think the new legislation, it does increase our work as well. So it increases the fee and it does increase our work that we have to do. I don't know if Josie was anything to add to that.
Just to say that during COVID, when this was introduced under the Planning and something bill, I can't remember which now Act, it was actually subsidised by the government, which is why they capped the fee at £100 previously. They've stopped the subsidy, brought in the new legislation Easter last year. And this, obviously, we had a fee then. We've calculated the new fee for this year, and this is what it's come out at. But we have had a lot of enforcement costs as well in this last year as well, which Paul could attest to. He's been out a lot enforcing on pavement licensing.
Councillor S. Taylor.
Thank you. Can I just ask, could you, when you're talking, get the mics a little bit closer? It's a little bit tricky to hear. Thank you. So totally understood around the COVID provisions. And again, and I find this fascinating, given that this is the first time I've set eyes on Tina for weeks. I find that I'm in complete agreement with Councillor Cadell's point. In 2019, the fees in Norwich City Council for pavement licences were £467. Even allowing for a 4% increase in costs, our proposed fee is about that same level. Which, and again, I find, you know, the idea that a small cafe in Watton should pay this licence, which is an equivalent cost to, you know, a large cafe in Norwich city centre with substantial footfall, just is disproportionate. And I think we have to recognise there's been an awful lot of talk within the council about what sort of area we want to promote, how we want Breckland to be. We've acknowledged the fact that our town centres need to be thriving and we want people to dwell and spend time in them. We have to find a way of ensuring that our traders and our cafe owners and our licensees have good access to actually facilitate that. And I think these costs really do need reviewing because it is prohibitive.
Councillor Hunter-Clark.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I agree entirely with Councillor Cadell and Councillor Sarah Taylor here with what they've just said. Can I just have some clarification then, please? When it says £500 for a new pavement licence, but we've got above here tables and chairs, £442 and 8 pence. Can I just have some clarification over, is that in addition or is that the fee before? It's just not very clear. And also, how many tables and chairs does that actually get somebody? Is it 2? Is it 4? Is it 22? Thank you.
Yeah, basically it doesn't matter how many. It doesn't matter if there's 10 or 50 or whatever. The amount of work is the same, where we would process, we would consult, etc. I haven't got my calculator with me, and I will do that. But I think it's also just from the business element is that, you know, that does enable them to increase their coverage and their seating. So they would have additional covers. I don't know what it is. It's £1, 20, 30 a day. So I've got my calculator with me. But I think, you know, that is so if they sell, you know, they sell a few cups of coffee a day of that additional seating that they've got, hopefully they, you know, it's a commercial decision that they can, you know, they can decide whether they want to have that or not. But what I'm saying is, you know, it is relatively low fee per day. But unfortunately, the cost of processing and inspecting and sending an officer, whether there's 10 chairs or 30 chairs or 40 chairs, the costs are fairly similar.
I think that the public will be very shocked to hear that if you've got a hotel and you're putting out 150 chairs and tables, that they pay the exact same fee as a small coffee shop in Dereham or Watton or any of our other market towns. I think that's quite shocking, actually. So I think I agree with my colleagues. This needs to be seriously looked at for the benefit of our residents and businesses.
Councillor T. Taylor and then Councillor Cadell.
Thank you. Can I just, for absolute clarification, this is like a cost recovery process, isn't it? We're not actually making a profit ourselves from these figures, no. And we're also not a charity. Okay, thank you.
Can I just add, we've just clarified the first licence, so when you first apply for the £500, that is actually for a maximum 2-year licence for pavements. And then you would pay 300 and whatever it's at, I haven't read the figure in there yet, any years following that, again for 2-year licence, if that helps clarify.
We've still not had an answer to the bit above the bit in blue, which states section 115 tables and chairs £442.08, tables and chairs renewal 231.25, tables and chairs copy of licence 25. Now, is that extra to the ones underneath? That's what Councillor Hunter-Carr asked, and we haven't had an answer to that yet.
No, sorry for that. So just to explain, they are two separate licenses. You would only need one or the other. That's based on whether your furniture is permanent, as in it doesn't get taken indoors every evening. So if that's the case, then you would need to apply for a tables and chairs license in basic terms. If you take your furniture in every evening, then you apply for a pavement license. There are some discrepancies in the legislation which mean that you can only be licensed for permanent furniture under the tables and chairs section 115E of the Highways Act.
Councillor S. Taylor, and then I'll indulge Councillor Hunter-Clark once more.
I just wanted to reflect on the fact that, yes, this is cost recovery, and yes, we are not a charity. However, the judgments and decisions made by the council and its committees are political in nature by virtue of it being a council of elected members. And so it is right and proper and expected by the people that we represent to challenge the basis of decisions that are being made or that have been made previously. And where we have an opportunity to review them, we must do that. I think this is really intolerable to hear that there are this kind of costs being imposed without due regard to the policies that this council already has in place. And I would like to hear a lot more of that within the debate, because if we cannot justify these costs in relation to the policies that already exist and that have been through council very recently, then they do need to be revisited because they are insupportable.
Thank you for indulging me, Madam Chairman. I think I'm allowed to say something now. I can't believe I found myself agreeing with Labour members in this debate I think we're having now, actually. But I would like to say, I like the fact that you talk about a breakdown and cost recovery and so on. Can we have a detailed breakdown, rather, of what it costs to do this? Because it's all right just using that phrase sort of willy-nilly, but it'd be nice to see actually where the breakdown is, if that makes sense. And why is it cheaper, if it's all about cost recovery, why are you saying it's cheaper if they bring their tables and chairs in at night? If it's about cost recovery, what extra cost is it to the council if they leave them out overnight? Does that make sense? I'm trying to be clear.
I'll answer the second question, but I'll leave the first one for Craig. So to answer the second question, tables and chairs licenses are for 1 year. The additional cost that's factored in for the pavement licence, which is a maximum 2-year licence, is that we go out and do interim checks to obviously make sure that the number of tables and chairs are as they are, that they're being compliant, that they're adhering to the conditions, etc. So that's why the cost is slightly more for pavements, if that makes sense. The legislation is the legislation. We just have to deal with it in regards to which you have to be licensed under. The tables and chairs licenses are only 1 year, which is why they're slightly cheaper.
And sorry, can you just clarify what the first part of that question was? Sorry, just.
So you talk about cost recovery and you're not here to make a profit, but how do you calculate that it costs an officer £500 or whatever the fee for these things are? How do you actually come to these figures?
I'm actually going to give Councillor Cogman the opportunity to talk, and then I will come to Councillor Cadell and to Linda, and then I'm going to draw it to an end.
Thank you. It was kind of to do with that, I guess, the modelling. So if you've got like a large hotel or cafe, say with 100 tables compared to a few outside a smaller cafe, and they're paying the same cost, is there not some sort of proportionality that can go into the modelling? Because the larger organisation, that will be a smaller percentage of its, profit, for example, so it can lose that cost, absorb that cost, cover that cost much more easily than a smaller place. So that's why it's just around the proportionality of it. So it's still the officer's amount of time, same amount of time and potential same cost, but it's all like kind of put into the pot and then kind of more fairly distributed to the residents and the community. And I think that's what comes across sometimes, is that the residents don't see the fairness and it's not explained to them. So that, is something I want to raise. Thank you.
It's more of an observation, to be honest. Licensing is statutory, it's not political. I've said this from day one of being on licensing. It's a statutory requirement by law, not a political football game. So I think that's why we at this end of the room are agreeing cross-party, because we want what's fair for our residents. Yeah. And I think just having a clarified overview of what the costs are, we can universally, as a whole council, statutorily explain why my local shop can't afford a pavement licence and now doesn't have tables and chairs outside, when we are trying to encourage growth within our towns. So this is just an observation that we all need to remember that we are not here to play political football.
Thank you for your comments, Councillor Cadell. Councillor Monument, did you have a comment to make?
Just this, that I found it somewhat confusing following what has been said about how long a tables and chairs licence is for. The pavement licence isn't a 2-year, it's a maximum 2-year. The tables and chairs appears to be for 1 year. One was for permanent furniture, one was for furniture that's taken in at night. And at some point, somebody was saying this one is cheaper than that one because we don't have to do the checks. I think I may have made my notes the wrong way round, but I think if this is going to be circulated for any further purposes, a bit of that information, in footnotes if need be, should be on here to clarify. Otherwise, people may look at all this and say all the things we've been saying here. Have I got to pay both? Or are you really charging both? Or which is the cheaper to do? And I can't work it out. I've been sitting here listening. I'm sorry.
Thank you for your comments. I'm actually just going to add some of my own. I'm going to actually just remind my members that this was just here for us to note. It will be going to full council. Comments can be raised there when the budget is being discussed. But I would also like to point out that I am probably the member sat in this room that understands the implications most around licensing as a business that is licensed by this authority, and the implications that those increases have, especially on small to medium businesses. So I sit here and understand everybody's concerns, and I do appreciate the scrutiny, but I do just need to remind you that this is just for us to note, and if members do have concerns, there are other forums to aim them at, because we're not actually voting on this in this committee at this time. Councillor S. Taylor, I will give you just the opportunity to come back before we do move on.
Thank you. 2 points. So just because we're asked to note it, I believe it's in our gift to request additional work. Yeah. My understanding is we do not have to just accept that recommendation, or the proposed, the noting of it. I think when we look at other models, there are models that exist elsewhere, including in Suffolk, which charge for tables and chairs licenses on a per table basis. So I would personally really like to see the consideration of alternative models which can allow for the correct licensing process, but through a model which is much more appropriate and touches on the proportionality point that other councillors have raised. The other thing I would just ask, and perhaps this is one for offline to the monitoring officer, is how conflicts of interest are being managed in relation to your personal business sort of interests, as you've just said. That would be helpful, just to give some certainty within the public arena. Thanks.
Thank you for that. And we have oh, now it's going to work. Right then, licensing performance, item 8. We're only noting, we don't have to vote.
On point of order then, I think I agree with my friend here, Councillor Taylor, that I'm sure we have the right as a committee to propose something though, don't we, under an item?
So there are no recommendations for this particular item. It is to note.
I'd like to recommend something.
I think what I can obviously add is the minutes of this meeting will go before council to note, so they will obviously receive and note your comments before then discussing the budget and this setting.
Fine, thank you for clarifying, and I'll raise it at that opportunity. Thank you.
Right then, if we can move on to item 8, licensing performance update.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, as we've done previously, is just to update committee on licensing performance. It is recommended that licensing committee to consider the information provided at Appendix A to this report and take account of the performance of the licensing team. So there are 3 performance indicators which are Appendix A to the report. There's the first indicator, which is PI 043, which measures the percentage of compliant licences based on enforcement checks. There's 1048, which is the second indicator, which is the percentage of taxi licence issued within a set time scale, which is 3 working days. And the target is 90% that must be issued within that target. And the third indicator is PI 051, which is the number of enforcement checks completed in each quarter, and the target has now been increased to 40. It was originally 20, but it's been 40 for a little while now. And there is some additional data in there as well about licensing work, which we've dealt with in quarter 3. So I think if I go on to the Appendix A, you will see there that the target is 40, that there's been 42 enforcement checks on the PI 051. Members might note that they're slightly less than the previous quarters, but they're still above target, and we would have had Christmas and New Year in there as well, which may have just affected those figures, but it's still above target. Percentage of taxi licence issued within timescales the value there is 100% of a target of 90, and there were 70 that were processed. And the percentage of compliance, so this is when we go to a business and we check it, a licence holder for compliance, how many of those are compliant? 96% of those were found to be compliant. So 96 were found to be, or judged by the officer to be compliant. 4% weren't. And the additional licensing statistics are there. That is for the quarter. So that is from, as you'll see in there, is the 1st of October. They're not PIs or performance indicators. That's just general information. So they're just some numbers there of the work that the teams dealt with. So I won't go into that any further detail. I don't know if there's any questions on that or anything you would like to ask.
Councillor Cadell.
I'd like, Craig, could you, or who's got their buttons still?
Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Craig. Can you explain, on the 12th of January, on the TENS notices that came out, the LA Vineyard and Lynn Street, Swaffham, and the Windmill Public House in Necton both had to apply for TENS for several days whilst awaiting licences, premises and full licences. A, did they have to pay for those TENS licences and also their ordinary licences? And B, why did they have to?
I can take some advice. I don't think under commercial confidentiality we should probably be discussing names of individual premises and what they've submitted and whatever. Quite happy to have a discussion outside the meeting. If they required to undertake licensing...
I'll ask the solicitor if she's able to.
No, can I just clarify that we do advertise the TENS that have been issued, don't we, on our website, and also obviously if we grant a premises licence.
Yes. Thanks, Sophie.
Okay, so to answer the question that you posed regarding whether they had to pay for the TENS and then also the application for the premises licence, the answer is yes, because in law you have to. So if you apply for a temporary event notice, it's £21. They are given advice at the time. Neither one of those premises had a premises licence, so they have made an application. I believe they're both live currently. So they have some temporary event notices to see them through until those premises licences will hopefully be granted. Obviously, they have to follow due process in accordance with the Licensing Act. But yes, they pay for both.
Any further questions? Then thank you, officers and Craig, for that report. And we will then move on to item 9, changes to legislation.
Thank you, Chair. As part of our procedures, we just really want to sort of like, as we go through new legislation, just really at the earliest opportunity, just want to flag things up that could be a potential game changer. So I would like to...
Is this the one under MA visits for the
Tobacco.
Right, lovely, thank you.
Okay. And full screen. Okay. Apologies. So as we become aware of potential pieces of legislation that could be of interest to the committee, we like to flag it up. And this could be a game changer. And my colleague sitting beside me will put it in much more practical terms when he carries out his presentation. So I'd just like to go over the Tobacco and Vapes Bill. The Tobacco and Vapes Bill is regarded as being a world-leading piece of health legislation which will phase out the sale of tobacco for the next generation and will take a strong regulatory approach to vaping. Next slide, please. Smoking is still the leading cause of premature death and disability in the UK. 2/3 of lifelong smokers will die because of smoking. Every day, around 350 young adults start smoking. Smoking causes at least 16 different types of cancer. The bill will phase out the sale of tobacco for all tobacco products. Government modelling estimates that this will avoid up to around about 500,000 cases of stroke, heart disease and lung cancer diseases by 2100, saving tens of thousands of lives and health and care systems billions of pounds. Next slide, please. Vaping is an effective adult quitting aid, but as we move on, there are problems with contaminating products and the way it's advertised and so forth. But tougher regulations are needed to curb youth vaping. The powers of vaping contained in the bill are flexible, giving the government far greater control over marketing and design of vapes and the flexibility to adjust regulations in the future should the market or evidence change. Can I have the next slide, please? So I'm just going to go through the main sort of details of the bill. And starting with the top one, banning the sale of tobacco, herbal smoking products and cigarette papers to anyone born on or after the 1st of January 2009. This piece of legislation provisions is aimed to come in on the 1st of January 2027, when the people born from January 2009 will become 18. Moving on, powers to extend smoke-free places legislation from indoor to specific outdoor public places. And further regulations will be required following consultation with that. And moving on to powers to create vape-free places, powers to regulate the flavours of vapes and other tobacco and nicotine products. Next slide, please. Powers to regulate product features and design of vapes and other tobacco and nicotine products. Powers to regulate point-of-sale displays for nicotine and non-nicotine vapes and other nicotine products. Powers to regulate the packaging of vapes and other tobacco and nicotine products. Power to regulate the flavours of vapes and other tobacco and nicotine products. Next slide, please. The bill also will put in provisions to stop the free distribution of vaping products, nicotine pouches, etc. Introduce age of sale restrictions. There'd be UK-wide powers for non-medical nicotine products and non-nicotine vapes. Proposals of putting a ban on vape and other nicotine products sponsorship and advertising. Also a ban on vape and other nicotine products vending machines. Next slide, please. Now this is where it becomes a bit more interesting for the licensing. Sorry, can I next slide, please? Powers. So yeah, sorry. So powers. So this is where it becomes much more interesting for the committee, I think. Powers to establish a new registration system for tobacco products, tobacco-related devices, herbal smoking products, vaping products, and nicotine products. Then moving on, enabling trading standards to issue fixed penalty notices for breaches of age of sale, proxy sales, free distribution, tobacco notice, and display restrictions. And the key one really for us at this moment in time, which I'll explain a bit more, England, Wales create a licensing scheme for tobacco and nicotine products, including vapes, so that only premises which have a license can sell them. Next slide, please. So this is where we are in the parliamentary system at the moment. So we've had a first reading, a second reading, but it's got quite a long way to go at this moment in time. But it outlines how far we are away from putting this in on the statute books. Next slide, please. So from our point of view, we don't know at this moment in time who's going to be responsible for enforcing or administration registration, and it could come to district councils. And if it does, that is going to create a problem with resources. And we don't know who will be responsible for enforcing, administrating for licensing. If the responsibility does fall to district councils, it will require significant resources, but full cost recovery may be possible. And as a note, the government planned to put in quite around about £70 million for bringing in enforcement provisions. Thank you, Chair.
Members, are there any questions? I'm actually quite interested to see these changes implemented. I know just how much effort the team put into dealing with illegal vapes throughout the district. So hopefully these will give us greater powers to deal with those that are offending. Thank you very much, Keith, for the update. And then we'll move on to item 10, partnership working.
You've got,
Yeah, I think.
Julie, slide.
Yes, thanks. Doing that. Okay, so I've been asked to just give a brief sort of explanation as to some of the partnership working that we carry out with some of our partner agencies in regards to licensed premises in the district. Obviously, vapes or the selling of illegal vapes being one of the major parts in it. So, who's next slide, please, Julie? Sorry. So who are some of the multi-agency partners we work with? We work predominantly with the police on a number of matters, not just illegal vapes. We also work heavily with trading standards, fire safety, immigration, border control, housing, food team, and the community team in regards to such things as antisocial behaviour in the district, because sometimes there's a knock-on effect from some of the behaviours of some of the licensees. Next slide, please. Our favourite kind of partner agencies. Our trading standards have a few sniffer dogs that they use in the district that come out on some of the visits that we carry out. They are literally the stars of the show, to be fair. Quite often they'll find things that we've never found. It's actually quite remarkable to see, to be fair. One of the ones I've done recently, we didn't find a lot when we were sort of looking around the premises, but one of the dogs that was there just continually sniffed at this one point behind the till, and when we looked a little bit deeper and started removing bits of wood, there was a whole stash of illegal vapes, tobacco and everything else. So, you know, these dogs are remarkable, to be fair. Next slide, please. So which premises do we visit? So the information relating to the premises that we target come from multiple sources. Sometimes they can come from information from other businesses. So, you know, legal vape shops, if you like, that sell vapes the right way. Obviously, they're concerned because their business is suffering because a lot of the other shops are undercutting because, you know, they're selling illegal vapes that are obviously below the British standard, etc., cutting costs, and obviously that's having a knock-on effect to legitimate businesses. Complaints from the public. We've had a number of contact emails from concerned parents where their teenage kids have come back and they've got, you know, they've been using vapes illegally and, you know, underage, and just general concerns. Licensing visits. So when I carry out a visit to one of our licensed premises, I'll generally have a look at the products that they've got on sale, and if there's any concerns at that point, I'll normally take a few photos and send it to our colleagues at Trading Standards. They'll then have a look at what intel they've got, what they've received. Potentially then they'll go out and do some test purchasing to see if they're able to buy these illegal products, and then
If it's successful, we'll then arrange a multi-agency visit. And at that point, we'll have discussions as to which agencies we feel are relevant to bring along. As stated earlier, if we believe that there could be possible immigration matters, we will also invite them to come along and check, obviously, passports and everything else whilst we're at the premises. Trading standards, intel and test purchasing, as I've just said, and our very own street wardens. As you know, the street wardens carry out a number of visits in Thetford, and they engage a lot with businesses, members of the public, and they've been really sort of positive in regards to this, and we've received a lot of information from some concerns that they've had on visits they've been to some of the shops, and obviously just general sort of word of mouth, which is really useful. So, you know, their work's been valuable. Next slide, please. Just shrunk my screen. We work very closely with our partner agencies and feedback any concerns raised regarding the premises in our area. An invitation is usually sent out to any additional partner that may have an interest in the premises. This could be regarding immigration concerns, fire safety, food concerns, housing, council tax and business rates. A date and time of visit is agreed with all partner agencies. Next slide, please. What happens at the visit? So generally speaking, what will happen is we'll normally meet up at the police station in whichever town that we're sort of working in. We'll have a meeting beforehand, share any intel that we've got, get some ideas of the people that we're likely to be seeing, members of staff that we're likely to expect at the premises, go through sort of license details, etc. And obviously, like I say, any sort of intel that's been received that will be useful. Myself and partner agency officers will enter the premises with the police. Police will activate body-worn camera. Once we've shown our ID and taken details of the staff present, we'll then begin to do our checks. So from our side, obviously, we're there on a licensing perspective. So we're there to check to see that the license details are correct. The people that obviously we have registered are still actually active. And obviously make sure that they're adhering to the conditions on the license, etc. Trading standards, obviously there to check to see if, vapes or tobacco products are being sold illegally. And like I say, I'll carry out licensing compliance checks whilst trading standards kind of do their thing. Next slide, please. Removal of alcohol. Next slide, please. That's a short one. Reasons for removal of alcohol from sale. Incorrect license details or no valid license. Incorrect designated premises supervisor details or no DPS. Conditions of the license restricting alcohol sold or the strength of alcohol. Annual fee not paid and license suspended. So yeah, a number of compliance visits that will be carried out are to check exactly these things. Some licenses do have a condition on there that permits them from, or actually states that they're not allowed to sell alcohol that is above a certain strength, like 6%, or in some cases they're not allowed to sell singular cans of high strength beer. So we have had situations in the past when we've carried out these visits and they have blatantly been selling high strength alcohol in singular cans, in which case they've been removed from sale. And obviously the licensee has been sort of spoken to in regards to it, and then we continue to check. We've also had situations where we've been to the premises and the licensee is no longer an active part of the business, in which case the license is no longer deemed as valid, in which case they need to stop selling alcohol. So this alcohol is then removed from sale until such a time they're able to provide a valid license. Next slide, please. Illegal tobacco products. Next slide, please. Illegal vapes are the types of e-cigarettes that have not been given the proper safety checks before being sold and can contain high amounts of nicotine and other dangerous substances. Counterfeit. The tobacco claims to be an established, well-known brand, but it's not, it's fake. Non-duty paid. Legitimate tobacco purchased abroad cheaply, brought back to the UK and sold at a fraction of the UK retail costs. And other unknown brands made for the illegal market. These brands are unknown and unregulated. Next slide, please. And numbers of illegal products seized. So as you can see from that photo there, this was just from one particular visit that was carried out. Oh, okay. I think I've skipped a page there, sorry. What to look for. So vapes. Nicotine strength. Legal nicotine e-liquid volume in the UK disposable vapes is limited to 2 mils, providing around 600 puffs. If you come across a disposable boasting more than this, or containing more than 2 mils of e-liquid, it's illegal. UK restricts nicotine strength to 20 milligrams per millilitres. Illegal disposable vapes lack safety and quality evaluations by the UK regulatory agencies. Tobacco, not sold in standardised packaging, unusual taste, cheap prices, around half the price of a genuine pack of 20. Just based on that, so from what we can gather, a lot of the premium illegal tobacco that's sold is sold generally at like about £5 a packet, which is obviously quite a huge difference to what obviously the legal tobacco products are sold for. Unusual packaging, spelling mistakes, wrong logos, discoloured packaging. The print quality of the detail on the cigarette is noticeably worse. Also, look at the health warnings on the cigarette packaging. They might not be in English, they might not display a picture, they might not be printed on a white background, they might have different sized lettering to the usual. Next slide, please. So yeah, going back to that side. So yeah, this is an example of one of the seizures that we've carried out recently. You can see there's a number of bags there that have been seized from trading standards. Next slide, please. Number of illegal tobacco products seized at 4 premises on the 11th of December. So this was the latest or the last sort of multi-agency visit that was carried out. 1,992 packs of cigarettes, 100 pouches of hand-rolling tobacco, and 253 vapes in total. Unfortunately, I did ask one of my colleagues at Trading Standards to see if he has got a running total of what was seized in Breckland over the last year, but haven't got that information to hand, unfortunately, as yet. So that can always be passed on at a later stage if anybody is actually interested in that. So yeah, so that kind of concludes my slides. I'm happy to take any questions if anybody's got any.
Members, are there any questions? Councillor S. Taylor.
It's flashing red. Okay, that's working. I sense I may not be alone in this. It's really interesting to see a lot of the work by the Trading Standards team. I feel like this licensing committee would benefit from a site visit with that dogs team. But in all seriousness, actually, I think there are parts of the work that are undertaken by the team which are on the ground and not behind a desk. And I think if there is an opportunity for us to go and actually see from time to time, I actually would really welcome it. And this kind of thing is exactly, I mean, we get stuff like this all the time in Dereham around the kind of vape shops and that kind. It's massively relevant to me as a local member, and I can see other people nodding as well. So if there was an opportunity to do something like that as committee members, I would really welcome that.
Chair, if I may. What we could do is ask Trading Standards to attend one of the licensing committees with the aim of sort of like sorting out a joint venture, if that is acceptable for the committee. So from our point of view, when we go out on one of those joint partnership visits, well, hopefully not, but it might give a better insight to the actual work that everyone does as partnership working. And we could invite Training Standards to give you their side of the story and how much resources they put into it as well. But that's up to the committee. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that, Keith. I'd just like to come in here, and I know like our team from Attleborough probably will be able to agree with me on this. We recently, as a town council, took on a premises that was thankfully shut down with the assistance of our team and Trading Standards and multi-agency collaborations. And the landlord was amazing and actually sided with everybody and took legal action against his tenant. When we went in and started renovating that building, and I have sent the images to the team, I was shocked at the lengths that these traders go to hide their illegal produce. There was a false wall put in and bookshelves with doors. So when you moved the shelves that looked like they were on a wall, there wasn't. There was hidden cupboards behind them. There was a coat hook and a mirror that looked like it was screwed to the wall, but actually it wasn't. And when you pulled it open, there was a cupboard and stuff where things had been hid. And it is a true testament to the collaboration, the work that goes on with our officers on the ground, the police, Trading Standards, that these premises are being dealt with and I take my hat off to all of you, because obviously illegal vapes, legal tobacco, cigarettes often do come from crime, organised crime, and people trafficking can sometimes be involved with that. So actually, I think it is a really important role that we are part of, and I thank you all for that. So with that, I'm going to move on to items for the next meeting, to note arrangements for the next meeting, which is going to be on the 4th of June at 10 a.m. Is Councillor S. Taylor?
Sorry, just a point of order. I don't know if it was so brief that I missed it, but did we actually have the performance update item? Oh my God, it just merged into the fees update. Right, apologies. I will review that and pay better attention next time. Thank you.
It's okay, you're welcome. With that, if members would like a 5-minute comfort break, we'll all grab a coffee. Right, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome you back to the Committee of the Licensing Authority on Wednesday the 5th. Again, just as we've had a little comfort break, we are not expecting any fire alarms, so if anything does go off, please use the exits that are clearly marked. We'll move straight on to item 1, minutes. Are everyone happy with the minutes? Is that a yes from everyone? Great. I will sign them off. Item 2, apologies. And I'm assuming these are the same. Thank you very much, Julie. Item 3, urgent business, if there is any. No, okay, we'll move straight on then to item 4, declarations of interest. No, okay. Item 5, non-members wishing to address the meeting. And moving swiftly on then, item 6, a licensing update. Josie, to take over.
Thank you, Chairman. So this is the usual COLA report, just giving you an update on what the team has been working on in the last few months. So it's, where are we? So licensing update. Under the Licensing Act, as you've just heard in Paul's presentation, he's been working collaboratively, working jointly with trading standards and police colleagues, carrying out inspections and enforcement action on several premises in Thetford. This resulted, as you saw, in large quantities of illegal vapes and tobacco products being seized, and our premises given notice to cease sales of alcohol, as there were issues with the licence. Paul has also participated in a recent antisocial behaviour day in Durham with other partners again from the police, Breckland antisocial behaviour team, housing teams alongside some other partner agencies. A number of premises, that's licensed premises for us, received visits from him and the team to check on compliance and make the licensees aware of initiatives in the local area. We continue the compliance visits to ensure that premises are correctly licensed. Again, that's mainly Paul going out doing these visits. I don't know what that's from, sorry. So through joint working with the wider team, that's food, health and safety and licensing, a visit was carried out to a premises locally that had previously been licensed, had reopened under new management and didn't have the correct licenses in place. Paul has been out and visited them, offered advice. Shall I just carry on? Turn it the other way, won't make any difference. It's not showing any weird bits. So as we were saying, so he's been out and given advice. They've now applied for a premises licence and also applied for temporary event notices to trade in the meantime. The Safety Advisory Group update. So the team saw an increase in organised firework displays in November 2024. Guidance was provided to those providing larger scale events, with all SAG members receiving information on the events that enables them to engage with the organisers and give advice. As most of you will be aware, a lot of the Market Town Christmas light switch-ons were cancelled last year due to Storm Bert on safety grounds, unfortunately. In the coming months, the team will be preparing for the large-scale spring-summer events, engaging with organisers to ensure safe licence events alongside our partner agencies in the Safety Advisory Group. And I believe Paul attended a meeting online earlier this week in regard to FM Seno, which is one of the big events that we have in the district this year. It has been confirmed by Maui Wari that that event will not be taking place in Breckland in 2025. As you're all aware, the Gambling Act Statement of Principles became live on the 1st of January. That's now in force, so thank you for that. In regard to taxis, the team continues to see demand for both drivers and vehicles to be licensed in the Breckland area. And although the overall figures suggest that we have a slight increase, it's remained fairly constant in the 18 years I've been here, but we have seen a slight increase this year. So where we see drivers retiring, we see new drivers coming on, and where we see old vehicles being replaced with new ones. We have had an immediate revocation of a driver licence that was issued following a guilty plea at a magistrate's court for an offence that is listed in the taxi policy, in the convictions policy, and the driver has not appealed the decision.
That's a good piece of work that took a little bit of following up. So good work on that one, Paul. We are now at a point where all of the annual driver declarations have been checked and followed up where required. Some people have notified us on those annual driver declarations of penalty points, change of address, etc., etc. So in line with the policy that was adopted here and through full council a couple of years ago, they have been issued with letters notifying them they now have points from the penalty point system that Breckland operates. So it's different to the DVLA penalty point system, just for clarity. They will stay on their records and be totted up should they ever have to appear before committee if they get to certain points. I think it's 9 and above, Paul?
Yeah.
Yeah, then they will be considered to bring to committee for not being fit and proper, not adhering to the conditions on the licence. Animal welfare, the renewal inspection for the licensed zoo has been organised and confirmed and will take place well in advance of the licence expiry date. Pre-inspection work will be carried out by the animal licensing officer to assist with the smooth running on the day. As you can imagine, there are a lot of inspectors. So there's 2 from AFA. The zoo has their own inspector. We have our own vet, as well as there's 2 officers in attendance. And it's a very heavy schedule of work to be completed on that one day. The animal licensing officer also assisted the environmental protection enforcement team with the recent successful prosecution, the first animal cruelty case, which was dog abandonment, to be taken by Breckland Council. So a successful result on the prosecution, showing that Breckland Council will not tolerate animal neglect or cruelty and will pursue legal action where evidence allows. And we very much hope that this has a deterrent effect on people out there. He's also been very busy completing 34 inspections in the last quarter with a further 21 to do before the end of March. Those inspections do take considerable time to ensure that the licensed premises under animal welfare are compliant with their licensing conditions and are meeting the animal welfare standards. On to work that we're coming on to, the Licensing Act 2003 Statement of Principles, so that's the Breckland policy. It is time for the 5-year review already. For those of you who've been on committee a little while, you probably remember it coming around last time. That will be taking place this year. The draft updated policy will be brought to this committee for consideration and to request public consultation later in the year. It's, I believe, anticipated to be in June currently. Some work has been continuing on the garage authorisations. It says garage contracts on here, but they're actually authorisations. So all documentation has been drafted. It's progressing. It's currently being reviewed by officers. Existing garages will be contacted over the next few months to advise of the changes and seek expressions of interest. And I believe the updated vehicle specification for those tests will be brought to committee also, possibly in June. We are also undertaking a review of the Department for Transport guidance that was issued in November 2023. It's anticipated that a review document encompassing that and any changes that are needed to the taxi policy from that, and also any updates to the taxi policy, will come to committee later this year. Can't give you a date on that one at the moment. One of the things I haven't mentioned in here, because it kind of just landed on us a week and a half ago, is that primates licensing is coming into effect in April this year. So we're undertaking some work to make sure that we're ready for that. That's all I have to say, Chairman. Thank you. Thank you. And I'll go over to questions. Councillor Cadell.
Did you mention there, I missed it if you did, garages? And can you also remind me, why did Maori not have, why are they not again? Sorry, I missed that.
So the garage contracts, not contracts, authorisations, the paperwork and everything, all of the documentation has been updated, if you like, and brought to a review, basically, of from the officers. They're undertaking that. So the intention is to bring the vehicle specification, which has been updated, to committee first, get your okay on that, because it is a document that you've previously authorised, so we need to get you to okay that.
then obviously we will contact and go out to expressions of interest later in the year. I'm not sure when that's timetabled at the moment, but it's all moving is what we wanted to just let you know. It's not been forgotten, it is there and it is all moving and progressing quite nicely. Sorry, the second, Maui. Okay, so it was just to update you that we received information from the event organiser to say that they will not be holding their event in the Breckland area this year. I don't know if we're able to divulge that. It's not really for us to do. That's between him and, you know, where they hold the event. So, but it was just to let you know that that's one big event that takes an awful lot of resource every year in not just in licensing terms, but in food, environmental protection terms, that we won't need to do this year.
Any other questions? No? Okay, thank you, Josie, for that. So we'll go on to item 7, training requirements.
Madam Chairman, I still haven't received anything from any officer in relation to my training for licensing panels, so I'd appreciate an email to that effect. ASAP, please.
Yes, Councillor Hunter-Clark, apologies for that. Can we pick up with you afterwards and then we can look at diaries and then obviously share the date once we've agreed between us? Thank you. Yes, Julie's just reminding me that we probably will also have a new member, so it might be as well to tie in with a new member with the training so that we can just hopefully cover it off once. And obviously we don't mind covering it as many times as we need to. But
Can I just ask, when we do our licensing training, obviously it is quite in depth, can we have a bit more of the environmental health aspect of it in there though? Just because obviously we look at all the other bits, but maybe not so much that. Yeah. Thank you. So then feedback and discussion on recent panel meetings, if any? No? Okay. And then item 9, next meeting, to note the arrangements for the 4th of June 2025. Oh, Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Chair. I wasn't quite sure where to raise this, given the agenda. I just wanted to raise a concern, hopefully a small one, but we might be able to resolve it now, regarding the way that the licensing committee was conducted with reference to votes. So if I understand correctly, the vote by you, Chair, was seen as a casting vote. But as I understand it, in Standing Order number 39, the application of casting votes is applied only to council and not to committees. So there's nothing within the Standing Order 7 or the associated standing orders with committees that relate to casting votes. So could we clarify that, please?
I will pass you over to Sarah for that because it was under Sarah's instruction.
We adopt the general principle that's stated in Standing Order 39, and that is adopted throughout other committees within the council, such as planning. But obviously, if you've got a discussion on that point, then could we take it offline and obviously discuss it with the monitoring officer as well, please? Oh, sorry.
Thanks. I think it is a matter of public interest, given the conduct. The subtitle under Standing Order number 39 does specifically state that it relates only to full council, and there is another standing order separately for committees in which casting votes are not set out. It's not discussed in that. If we need to defer it, that is fine. I'm amenable to that. I'm not being sort of obstructive, but I do think it would be prudent to note within here that the vote within the preceding licensing committee needs to be held subject to the outcome of that discussion, please, because otherwise it's it is quite a substantive point given how the votes went. So, and as I say, I think it's in the public interest just to resolve that.
I was just going to come back and say, Councillor Taylor, thank you for raising that and pointing out the inaccuracies in those documents. Like I said, I took advice from Sarah, so I will hand back over to Sarah.
I can't give you chapter and verse now, but obviously I'm happy to, and we can make comment in the minutes when they are released.
On that note, if there's no further, I'll draw the meeting to an end. Thank you all for your attendance.